Weightlifting is a hard sport. Sports are hard. We're willingly subjecting ourselves to discomfort. Instead of looking at things as a distraction, specifically music, look at it as the long-term investment of that athlete. Weightlifting is a sport of attrition. People drop out left and right because it's hard. Giving the athletes that outlet to dance, have fun, bond with each other is going to create more buy-in to you as a coach, which will then keep that athlete in the sport longer, which will then make them better at the sport.
Hi, Dr. Mike. First of all, congratulations on your PhD. Huge achievement. And welcome to Evidence Strong Show for the third time. You're a second person who achieved that prominent goal. Super happy to have you. We talking music and performance, but before we go there, please briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on again. Pleasure to be here as always. So the short story here, right out of high school, I joined the military. I became a paramedic after that. That got me into exercise science, where I started my coaching journey in college sports, where I got introduced to the weightlifting movements. Before that, I was powerlifting. Then I started really diving into the weightlifting movements, the snatch and clean and jerk. Honestly, just really fell in love with that. Got my USA weightlifting level 1, eventually got my level 2, and I started continued coaching high school, college, mostly strength and conditioning and athletics, but shifted into coaching weightlifting as well. And then I shifted into the military setting up until the beginning of the year. So strength and conditioning is my passion. Weightlifting is my passion. And I just, any way we can give back to the field and give back to the athletes is what I'm here to do. Honestly, not a whole lot has changed since the last time we talked. So
No, wait a minute. You started a podcast, so let's talk briefly about that too.
Oh, yes. Wow, it has been that long, hasn't it? Yeah. So I do have a YouTube channel now, Mike's Garage Gym. That's also the home of my podcast, Strength Coach Thoughts, where I kind of just give my unhinged opinion on popular topics in strength conditioning. By popular, I mean topics that coaches like to argue about, and then I just give my perspective on it. I try to keep it as academic and researched as possible, but some of the topics just don't have that. But yeah, I started the podcast up. I started my YouTube channel up, which is just, my training videos. So snatch, clean and jerk, squat, accessory days, stuff like that. So I've had that going since January. So, and that's getting some traction. So that's exciting.
All right. Now, why music and performance?
So I do remember, by the time I started with the military, I was about 8-ish years into strength and conditioning. And I've worked with a lot of coaches that would tell me, we need to earn the right to listen to music, or we're going to take music as punishment, and different attitudes around music like that. And I always intuitively thought, I'm like, when I work out, music, like I know if there's music and no music, I'm going to lift better with music than without. And at the time I was writing a lot of like newsletter articles and just educational material to give out to coaches and people I worked with. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, I have this coach that's like anti-music. Music's a distraction. It's in the way. And I was trying to talk to him, and I was trying to find research articles on it, and I couldn't find anything. There wasn't any research into music's effect on non-endurance sports. Let's say it that way. Endurance activities, there's a ton of research. As far as athletics or weight room environment, there just hasn't been anything. So when it came time to select my topic, I realized that music was something that I could easily assess across a wide variety of people in a mass way. I could mass communicate it out. It was kind of checking all the boxes that I needed. And I mean, every time I've mentioned it to somebody, they're like, well, yeah, music helps. So I'm like, right. But in academia, just that gut feeling doesn't carry any weight. So if we can sit here and say, yeah, we know it helps, but we actually don't until the research is done. So I think there was maybe one study I found that there was one study I found that took a 5-rep max bench press and took them reps to failure with or without music. And they just found that the group with music was able to get more reps than the group without music. And I'm like, that's awesome, but what else? And that's the what else is where it hasn't been researched at all. So kind of a get back at all the coaches that are like, we're going to take music away because you have to earn it back. And I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I decided to research it.
You are in front of your study. You have to plan it. How did you go about designing it?
So because music is very personal, it's very emotionally driven. So a ton of research into the psychology of music, the physiology of music, and kind of the social aspect of music. I wanted to try to see if in a future study is going to be like if team dynamic plays a role more than the music does. So is it music providing hype for the team, or is it the music itself providing the benefits? But we'll get to that. So from that, I decided to use Likert scale questions on preference, tempo, volume, basically the hard metrics, right, that were common through the research. And then I use just open-ended, explain your answer questions to try to find themes in the answers onto if we're seeing this trend with the like art questions, is there a qualitative reason for that trend that we can kind of assume? But mostly what I was assessing for was, did music help with perceived effort and then the perceived exertion? So simply put, when music was present, did the athletes feel like they could do more with less effort? So did they feel they could lift more reps, more intensity with reduced feeling of exertion? With the back end of that for strength and conditioning being, if we can somehow utilize music, can we get more intensity out of a session than we typically would have just by using music smartly?
Right. So that was the premise of the study. Now, who did you invite and how did you
Yep.
distribute?
So luckily, with the opportunities that I was presented, I was able to utilize a college softball team. Additionally, I had the collegiate strength coaches that were working with other coaches I met around the city that are also in collegiate setting or tactical setting. The research question was very simple. It was, does music influence perception of performance? So that's to me, the research or the surveys I got back was a simple yes or no. I think we had one athlete out of 18 that said, they didn't say no, but they didn't say it had a significant impact on them. So 17 out of 18 of them said, yes, it helps. Oh, okay, but what components of the music were helping the athletes or perceiving to help the athlete? So we analyzed the tempo data, the volume data. We analyzed preference, if a certain preference style of music came out more than another. And then we kind of read through the open-ended responses and looked for themes among those responses and kind of categorized them based on what we were seeing, both for the coaches and the athlete.
You had 17 athletes. How many coaches?
So we had 18 athletes and 11 coaches. Yes.
What have you found?
So, guys, both coaches and athletes said that they prefer music of the coaches and athletes I surveyed. What significantly stood out was the music preference was the most statistically significant factor. Volume played a role in that, but when if you didn't like the music that was played, no matter what volume it's at, it's gonna hinder performance rather than help with performance. So if you like the music that's being played, you're going to feel like you can perform better, is a lot of what we found. And that goes both for our perception of effort, so reducing the perception of effort and increasing the perception of performance. So for both of the variables I was assessing, that was what we found was music you like at whatever volume seems to elicit the highest performance gain, reduced perception of effort. Tempo didn't really have a statistically significant role at all, which one of the things we discussed during my defense was because the endurance research was so heavy on tempo, why tempo didn't really show an effect with the weight room. And my 2 cents on that is we don't really do anything that music tempo would influence in the weight room. Cycling, running is all cadence driven, where a tempo can work with that. You can maintain a certain pace or you can back off of a pace. You can maintain or back off of a pace based on the tempo of the music, where weightlifting, we don't have anything like that. So I was not surprised at all to find tempo played almost no role in the variables I was finding. Volume, I thought would play a higher role because when I'm going for like a max or a PR or something, I'm cranking my volume as loud as I can go. So I thought that would play more of a role, but as I said, it did play a role, except it preference kind of overshadowed it. So I mean, our preference for perceived effort, we had a R value of 0.77 with our P value of 0.001. The volume was a 0.9 with a P value of 0.001. And then for performance, for the perception of performance, preference was an R value of 0.63 and a P value of 0.005. And the volume was an R value of 0.61 with a P value of 0.001. So volume was there every time, but preference overshadowed it each time. So that was the major findings that we had.
Should you have a separate playlist for max snatch versus max clean and jerk?
So a lot of lifters on my team have asked me if I've created like the perfect weightlifting playlist yet. And I'm like, no, why would I do that? They're like, well, your entire doctorate is around music and performance. I'm like, you think I would have connected those dots and I haven't. So But no, I mean, it goes back to the best music for performance is music you like. I'm going to add the caveat in there at the volume you like. So what the best snatch and clean and jerk playlist for me might look very different than you, very different than somebody else. So as an athlete, I recommend having a playlist that you like to go back to, especially for competition, having something familiar that, and this is something that I'm going to talk on if we talk about like how coaches can use the results here, but having your playlist structured in a very specific way as well. So if you have like a PR song or that song that just when it comes on you get the chills and you get that feeling, then you should kind of, especially for competition, you should kind of know your warm up, how long that's going to take you, and try to match your songs up so that when you're going out for that first attempt, let's say second attempt or whatever you need it to work, that song is coming on now, or however you want to use music for warm up. But definitely use music for warm up. That is the takeaway here. But creating a playlist in a structured way. So not just, I know when I was a kid, it was a bunch of random songs on a playlist just because I liked them. But being more deliberate with your music selection, I think is going to yield good results.
Let's talk a little bit about coaches.
The same rating for preference and volume. So the coaches both rated preference of music high and volume high. Now the coaches' questions were more, do you notice a difference in the athletes with or without music? So it's more of that coaching eye. It's if the music they like is playing, do you see them perform better, or do they seem to perform better? And then there were questions on their coaching style of using music for that effect. So the coaches, all of the coaches rated it very highly. They said that preference of music and volume were both, again, the key indicators of, or key responses of that of their responses. And then as far as deliberately using music, that's where it got interesting. Some coaches answered in the like art questions that they think music helps improve performance, but then when they were asked to respond to that, a lot of them were like, well, I just don't really think about it, it's just there. So it got, I mean, I'm not going to pick apart their responses because their responses are their responses, but that makes me wonder how much they actually think music helps with the performance then if they don't really think about it at all. We did have coaches too that who outlined how they like to use music, right? So they like to start the warm up with like kind of like, I'm not saying chill relaxing music, but like we're setting the theme, right? We're like, hey, this is what we're picking music that's going to be indicative of how the day's going to go. And that's while they're explaining the workout, demonstrating any new exercises, whatever. And then once they turn the athletes loose, they start doing the warm up. The music might change and get a little bit louder. And then when it is warm up is done, we're slinging bars and, crushing PRs. Music is cranked. It is going crazy. Everybody knows like, hey, it's time to go, right? But he's been building this. And I mean, this is the coach I work very closely with. So I've seen him do this. It's building that energy from the beginning. It's setting that standard. Hey, here's what we're going to be. Here's the feeling we're going to have right now. And it's very subtle. It's like the music's on in the background. It's like, oh, they just got done with a session. They turned it down, right? But it's deliberate. It's there. It's still there. You can just hear it. And it's music that people are like, yeah, okay, I kind of like this. Like it's music they like. Then warm up comes on. It's like, all right, we got the warm up, or we got the workout explained. Let's break it down. We get the break. We go into the warm up. We turn the music up a little bit, just enough to like, okay, we're not talking as much. So you still need to hear our count, but we can start going. And then when it's, all right, hey, we got power cleans, we got squats, we got whatever's going on, we go over and just max that thing out as much as we can without blowing speakers up, right? And then that's when, athletes start yelling, everybody's having a great time, the bars are flying around, everybody's slamming stuff, like it's a great time. And then as we get into accessories, the music might shift. So what I mean by that is with the college athletes we work with, it is a lot of rap, R&B, hip hop, stuff like that. So we might go from like aggressive, heavy hitting rap music, loud in your face, to like maybe a little more like soulful R&B kind of stuff for accessories. We're still keeping the volume up there, so we're still keeping it like, hey, we need to be moving, but now the vibe is shifted a little bit, like the whole energy is shifted. Then when it gets into like, all right, we're done accessories, if we're going into conditioning circuit, we're right back to intensity. We're shifting it back to, okay, hey, this is a trigger now, we need to get our minds right and get after conditioning. If it's like more foam rolling recovery, like stretching base, we're going to shift the music completely and turn the volume back down to kind of start encouraging that nervous system to start relaxing a little bit more and indicate that, hey, we don't need the energy anymore. We need to start bringing it down so we can get the relaxation we're looking for. That was the most insightful answer I received from the survey responses. Was like, yes, I use it deliberately as a strategy. Here is the strategy. And I'm like, awesome. But other coaches are like, yes, it's valuable. Yeah, I think about it, but I think about it as much as I just tell the athletes to go put something on. And if it gets too loud, I tell them turn it down, but that's about it. So it seems to be one of those that's like an afterthought, which again is, I think, another reason why as I dove more into this topic, it turned into that's a really interesting topic because nobody really thinks about it. It's not like music's just something that's, yeah, music's always there. It's like, right, but have you ever worked out in a gym where it's not? Or it's music that you absolutely can't stand. So it's not something in mind until it is, I guess.
I think it may be, look, what we know from research is music helps possibly and or very likely, and it is the preferred music. So going about it in a way, I have a very busy setup. I have so many things to worry about. Maybe I have no one to help and, 50 athletes in the gym. I can't be controlling the music. So my approach is let the athletes choose what they like. And if they using the power responsibly, I don't engage with it at all. And I think it's not a bad approach from your research and the previous studies you described. This is if you are very limited on resources and have no capacity, that's the way to go. Just let them do whatever they need or want to do.
Exactly.
If you have capacity and you have resources and you can actually use it mindfully then and purposefully, that is another approach that one of the study participants proposed, and it seemed
Right.
working too. You saw it in action and you think it may be useful too. So I think it's very useful to offer these two options to whoever is listening, because I don't know what the environment is. I've been to gyms where there's no music, and how it ends up is that some athletes will put headphones in and have their own music going on while everyone else is. So it may be also that in general, we have to talk about it. In general, music plays a role. It's an enhancing role. There may be people who are more sensitive to it and absolutely require it, and maybe people who don't care as much. They are not influenced as much. What would you say to that?
No, I mean, of course. I think that I definitely think there are people out there that music they just may be indifferent to it. With the specifically targeting like collegiate and strength and conditioning with this study, we're really never going to have an environment where they don't have music because that's not really a culture that most sports programs cultivate. They want the high energy, they want the yelling, they want the camaraderie. But to the point of the headphones, if I'm working with a football team of, 60, 70 people on roster there, if they have headphones in, that's now a safety risk because if I'm giving instruction and they got headphones in, they can't hear the instruction, they can't hear other coaches, they can't hear like, hey, watch out if they're about to hit into somebody. So I know in my experience with strength and conditioning, headphones are typically never allowed. Weightlifting coaching, yeah, if they want headphones in, as long as it's a volume that like if I'm talking to them, they take it out or something, that's never been a problem, or they just leave one in or something. But I would also challenge that if the athletes that are like, I don't need music, I could just do it on my own, sure, but try it with music and see what happens. And I do, there's always an exception to the rule. So I'm sure there is, I don't know what number, but there's probably outliers of certain percentage of the population that just want nothing to do with music or don't like music or just and that was one of the questions, like I mentioned, was do you enjoy music while lifting? That was the first question of surveys. So I didn't get any no's. So everybody I surveyed does, but I'm sure if this was blown up into a larger scale, I might get a few no's that they just like to come in and do their workout and leave. I mean, I love the sound of, wooden heels on a platform and the clack of a bar too. But I mean, if I'm going for a PR or a heavy, like it's a heavy session or like a rough session, I'm putting music in every time. That's just my preference. So I know a lot of people use it for that effect to kind of block out. And that was a lot of the endurance training research was blocking out the pain, blocking out the fatigue. It's I'm not focusing on, I'm doing 12 singles on the minute of 70% snatch or something. I'm focusing on like, hey, I like this song, or I'm singing along with the song, or like bang, I'm like nodding my head with the temp. Like I'm focusing on everything except this sucks. I don't want to do this right now, or I'm dying in my 100-degree garage gym. Like, it's a way to divert the discomfort that comes along. And there are people that want that discomfort. More power to you. But I think it's a time and place kind of thing. There are days I don't put music on and I lift. I will fully admit those are not some of my best lifting days. So I mean, the evidence every time I think about that kind of stuff, I think about my own personal experience, which I don't want to relate that to research, but the days I don't have music are some of my worst lifting days. The days that I don't feel like it, I put music on, and then all of a sudden, like I'm like, you know what, I could probably do this. Like it just, and that's consistent with the psychology research. It's a way for your brain to just change topic, right? Hey, I don't want to do this. This is going to suck. This is going to be heavy. I'm, the two wolves in you, the weak one and the strong one. Which one are you going to feed? Music allows you to feed the strong one and kind of keep the weak one quiet, and that's consistent with the research as well. So that's what I would challenge the one that doesn't need music to just try it with music and see what happens.
Well, I mean, this is a tool, so you should use it before you decide it's not for you. Definitely.
And I did notice, I know last time we talked, I mentioned how in competition they typically don't have music. I've noticed, at least with USA weightlifting, even some of our bigger series meets, they're just keeping the music on the whole time, which I'm like, okay, like sweet. Like I don't know if they're doing that intentionally or if they're just not focusing on that, but local meets, they're starting to just have music going, and the larger meets, the more national meets, they're still just keeping music on. So I don't know if that's for the spectators, if that's for the lifters or what. I know the larger, international pan-ams, all that stuff, they're not really, it's still very quiet, very, professional culture, but I am noticing, intentionally or unintentionally, more music being played at venues for some of these meets as well too. So your preference and the volume it's played at, there's no control of that, unfortunately, but I would also argue that some music could be better than no music, unless, well, maybe not, because competition is where it does get tricky. If you're walking out on the platform and you are focused, you're in the zone, and they're just playing something crazy, that could be a detriment too. So I don't know. I go back and forth on that. I mentioned I did come from powerlifting. My first powerlifting meet I ever did, the speaker caught fire because they were blaring it so loud that it just blew up on them. So that's what I came from. And then I came into weightlifting, where I would watch everybody sit there very quietly, and you would hear like maybe a grunt as they lift, and then everybody would clap and the bar would drop. And I'm like, where's the energy? Where's the excitement? We're lifting weights. Like, what are we doing? So I am happy to see that progression to, like, at least there's music now, but now it's like, all right, well, now that I'm further in the sport, I think I'm coming up on my 6 years in the sport. So I should be seeing my best lifts coming up soon. But so Olympics 2020, no. But I mean, and that's where now I understand a little more of the nuance of competition and the mindset and the flow state. So now I could also see the other side of, like, well, they're playing this, music I don't like, and I'm walking out and I'm trying to focus, but I have ADD, and all I can focus on is the song I don't like that's next to me. And now I'm not focused on the bar that I'm trying to lift. So I don't know. That's a kind of a double-edged sword that I'm just now realizing I'm falling on. So
Yeah, tricky.
yeah, I'm gonna stick with no headphones on the platform, because that's a safety risk and that's a danger. So I fully support that. But I don't know. I mean, I did. Somebody jokingly told me, like, so as a weightlifter, are you gonna have a walkout song now that you know this? And I'm like, you're joking, but that's not a terrible idea.
It's a good idea.
You registered, yeah, when you registered for the meet, you just put your walkout song, and then every time you came up, like baseball, they played your song. I mean, hey, I'm just a small guy in the totem pole, but the listeners on here, there's some high level people. We can get that rolling. So that was a joke that was kind of serious. So
Yeah, yeah. In some meets, the music goes on and then it stops for this time where the lifter is called.
right.
It restarts again after, and it's like a popular upbeat music, let's say, in general. So it's, unless you really, really hate the popular music, you should be fine. I like the idea about a walkout song. I think it would be very entertaining for the spectators, good for the lifter because they can have their song, and that would be fun because it would show, the character. It's very individual sport. You are on the platform by yourself, and then
Yeah.
you have this song to show who you are, and then it all comes together. I think for the audience, that would be awesome. For the lifter, it would
Yeah.
be pretty good too. So we said it.
I mean, yeah, it's no secret. I mean, my weightlifting coach is Jon North, so very high energy, very enthusiastic about lifting. And I've shifted away from chasing a maximal number to just going out and putting on a show. It's for the spectators. It's 100% for me and personally. Like, I want to hit my best lifts. I want to win. But if I just walk out, hit my lift, and then walk off stage, like this, I haven't done anything for the spectators either. So, and that's where I know that's been a discussion in the past. Like I said, I'm only 6 years old in the sport, roughly, so I don't know before that. But lately, I've heard that discussion in the past couple of years of, like, how do we make weightlifting more spectator friendly? And that is where something like, I'm not saying go Savannah Bananas, the baseball team, and they're dancing and all that. I'm saying that. But if you go out and you have a, appropriate song, but a good song, you feel good, you hit your lift, you put on a show a little bit. I mean, I'm again low man on the totem pole, but I would be hard pressed to not believe the sport would grow a little bit in spectatorship. Like, people would want to watch people lifting weights, having fun doing that, and being entertained by it. So that's my 2 cents here. So, but yes, as far as music and walkout song, and that kind of solves the problem too. We mentioned at the very beginning about how the warm up can be chaotic, and if you have a specifically curated playlist, it might not match up. Cool. Your PR song is your walkout song then. like that's it. So when your name is called and you're walking out and that song goes on, you get the chills down your spine, you get everything's going. You're like, this is my song. Everybody's going to perform better. I mean, I don't have the reason. I don't have any doubt. Everybody's going to perform better. I think we all feel that. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see that happen. So whoever is listening and is in charge, please make it happen. So what coaches could and should implement or experiment with on the base of your study?
I think a lot of what we've been talking about is intentionally use music in a way that dictates the flow of what you want. Let the athletes select their music appropriately if that's something you care about. I know with my athletes, we're all of certain age. They've probably heard words before. I'm not really sensitive to swear words. I let them play if it's appropriate. I'm like in my garage or something. If they're in a school, there's other problems, but let them play music they like at volumes they like. You'll probably be surprised at how much more focus we get and how much more zoning in and all that. I do want to emphasize that I think the common theme here was music is not a distraction. I think a lot of the older school sport coaches would see like a song come on and the athletes would be dancing around and they'd be enjoying the music and they see that and they're like, you guys are distracted. And I think what my argument to that was, is they're not distracted. That's their outlet. That's their way of like expressing, that's their way of having fun in grueling sports. And weightlifting's hard. Football camp is hard. Basketball camps, like sports are hard. So giving the athletes that one moment of, what's a song, 2-3 minutes long of just let them have fun for a second, like that's going to go much further than just, being uptight, no music. You guys are distracted by this because now they're just going to be sitting back like, man, coach doesn't get it. Like they're distracted by you being distracted by the music. So I do want to put that out there. It's not a distraction. It's going to help your athletes. And I would find a way to try to deliberately work it in. If you're warming up or explaining the workout for that day, maybe have something like high energy but quieter to try to set the tone. As they're warming up, maybe bring the volume up, depending on what kind of day you have. If it's a max effort day, hey, let the athlete put their songs on, let them do it. Like the focus should be on the athlete's performance that day. If it's more of like a, capacity building or just general strength day, whatever we're doing for the workout, then, we can have the music louder for more intense sessions or sections of the workout, bring that music down for less intense sections. Kind of undulate the music the same way you would undulate volume, intensity, stuff like that. So for coaches takeaway, I would just think about maybe the first step isn't coming up with the whole plan on how to use music, but just intentionally being aware of the music. So strength and conditioning coach, if you're in the weight room, like noticing the difference if there's loud music that's just like not what the athletes are buying into, and seeing what the athletes are giving you from that, and then letting the athletes put on and seeing if you see a difference there. Because I from what I've seen with the study, you're going to notice a performance increase just letting the athletes put the music on. And then from there, if you do notice those trends, you could potentially start creating your plan from that. So I would just start with awareness, because awareness is going to help yield results. And then results, you're going to be able to tailor the results a little better. So then if administrations or other parties that get involved with that may be against the music, you have a little bit more ammunition to talk about why music is actually better for the athlete than not.
Sounds good. Do you have a specific take-home message for the coaches?
As we've kind of talked about, weightlifting is a hard sport. Sports are hard. We're willingly subjecting ourselves to discomfort. Instead of looking at things as a distraction, specifically music, look at it as the long-term investment of that athlete. Weightlifting is a sport of attrition. People drop out left and right because it's hard. Giving the athletes that outlet to dance, have fun, bond with each other is going to create more buy-in to you as a coach, which will then keep that athlete in the sport longer, which will then make them better at the sport.
Sounds good. Now, I have you for the third time. So the senior short question is, what is one piece of wisdom, it doesn't have to be related to the study, that you could pass on the younger coaches or less experienced coaches?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this the way I tell a lot of my interns and GAs, and then I'm gonna expand on it. Our job is to teach people to pick up heavy circles. That's it. I think we take some things way too seriously, and we miss the athlete, we miss the person that's behind that athlete, because we're getting caught up in everything else that's coming at us. So what I mean by that is we just teach people to pick up heavy circles, like it's not that serious. What I mean by that is don't miss the person behind the results you're looking for. There's still a human being there. They're still there because they have their goals and their aspirations. They have their life. They have life happening to them. So don't miss the athlete because you're so caught up in whatever you're caught up in at the time, right? Just people first. I always tell the interns this: you can't be a coach without people to coach. You can't be a leader without people to lead. So if you are so caught up in the weeds of things that you're just losing like athletes because you're missing them as a person, then you're not going to be a coach very long. So take it seriously, but it's lifting weights. It's fun. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be competitive, but it's meant to be fun. So don't burn people out and burn athletes out by missing the person first. That's my biggest takeaway, no matter what we're talking about, is person first, athlete second, weightlifter, football player, basketball, identity third, whatever you want to call that. But person, athlete, whatever.
Thank you. The last question, where people can find you when they want to follow you, see what you're up to.
Yeah, so my Instagram is where I'm the most active. It's Coach Mike 311. So Coach Mike 311. I'm on YouTube as Mike's Garage Gym. That's where my podcast is as well. I am barely on TikTok now as of this week, as of Tuesday of this week. And that's also Mike's Garage Gym, just tied to the YouTube channel. And then I'm on LinkedIn, where I post a lot of my LinkedIn is more of my research articles, dissertations. So all of that is posted on my LinkedIn. That's just my name, Michael Richards, with my alphabet after my name. And that's everywhere I'm at that I can think of. My email, I can send that to you to put wherever. People are welcome to email or reach out to me in any of those formats.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for today. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. I look forward to the next one.